What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You know how you can tell when something is Trump derangement syndrome? It's getting worse, folks. It's getting much, much worse. But you know how you can tell? They cannot give the man credit for doing anything. I watch these people go on to Piers Morgan Uncensored all the time, and he always brings this up. Can you give credit to Donald Trump for securing the southern border? And nobody ever, none of these lefties, they never give him credit for doing so. If they say, yeah, the border's secure, it's always caveated with, yeah, but ICE, but my detentions, and my deportations, and all this other nonsense. They'll always caveat it with, oh, the orange man is bad. Make sure and remember that Cheeto Hitler over here is the bad guy. It's fascinating, right? Enough of my intro here. Let's get into the news. Trump puts pressure on India, but not because of Ukraine. Oh, here we go with some conspiracy theories, y'all, from the left. Let's get into this because, once again, they just make it up as they go, y'all. They really do. At first glance, the threatened tariffs are about peace in Ukraine. U.S. President Donald Trump said in an interview with the U.S. business broadcaster CNBC that India's oil purchases are helping to fuel the Russian war machine. Therefore, India must stop buying Russian oil. Putting pressure on India right now seems to make sense. An ultimatum issued by the U.S. president to Russia expires in 2 days. If Putin fails to agree to a ceasefire by then, new U.S. sanctions threaten. Yeah, they clearly didn't finish that sentence. I'm not sure what they were thinking on that. Maybe it's some sort of typo. I don't know. But what do they threaten? Like, seriously, they could have finished that sentence, but that kind of ticked me off. I'm like, what? Finish what you're saying here. By demanding that India stop buying Russian oil, the U.S. is ostensibly also exerting economic pressure to end the war. Major buyer of Russian oil. Since the beginning of the Ukraine war a good 3 years ago, India has become the second largest buyer of Russian oil after China. However, the fact that Trump is now threatening India with tariffs and issuing an ultimatum to stop buying Russian oil could have a completely different background. Now they're trying to make you think that Donald Trump's tariffs on India and threatening to, telling them to stop buying Russian oil and feeding that into the war machine. Not only that, but also the trade deal he just made with the EU, where they agreed to purchase $600 billion worth of U.S. oil. Yeah, that has nothing to do with trying to end the war. Trying to kick the legs out from underneath Russia has nothing to do with ending the war. Kick the legs out from underneath their economy. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to throw that in there. That's what he's trying to do. And what their excuse is going, you'll see. I don't want to spoil everything, so you'll see. India trade economist Biswajit Jar is not, I'm sorry, that's probably mispronounced like the complete opposite way of what it should be, but I'm sorry. I'm not a well-traveled person. And I don't know too many Indians, so I apologize if I got that wrong. I'm pretty sure I did, but Biswajit Jar is not the only one who suspects that Trump's main concern is trade. India and the U.S. have been negotiating a trade agreement for months, but it hasn't made any progress. Among other things, India is refusing to open its sensitive agricultural market to U.S. products. But Trump is also clearly interested in opening up new markets for U.S. oil. Biswajit Jar says it's no surprise that Trump is tightening the screws right now. Last week, Trump announced a 25% tariff on Indian exports to the U.S. That would likely have been manageable for India, the economist says, especially since pharmaceutical products would be exempt for the time being. China would step into the breach. But even if India were to stop buying Russian oil in the future, that would hardly help drain Russia's war chest, says Alexander Gubev, head of the Carnegie Russia-Eurasia Center think tank. India and China together buy around 80% of Russian oil. If India abandons its oil supply, China will simply buy more, he says. China has already made that clear, and so enough money will continue to flow into Putin's war chest. Okay, so that supposition right there that, oh, China's just going to pick up the tab. Well, hang on. How much does India actually buy from Russia? That's the first question you must ask yourself before trying to buy into this supposition right here. So India buys about $53 billion worth of crude oil from Russia on an annual basis. Or that was at least the numbers from 2024. You might think, well, that's not a whole hell of a lot. Yep, that's a lot. I'm sorry. That's a lot for China to just pick up and just say, screw it. We're just going to increase by this much. What are they going to use that oil on, for crying out loud? And why are they just not buying that much in the first place? What doesn't make sense about this is that China is just going to pick this up, right? But there's another angle here. We are slowly pushing Russia and China into a corner. If we can get all these countries to stop buying Russian oil, to stop trading with Russia and China and all these places, that'll put them in a box, an economic box, and they will start to hurt economically. That will put pressure on them, on at least Russia, to end the war quickly, because they'll run out of money. Right? May not in the meantime, right? But slowly, their economies are going to start to crumble slowly over time. This is the point. So ostracizing these places for fueling the war machine, if you will. That's the whole point of this. What other point could there be? It really doesn't matter if China's like, yeah, we'll just pick up the tab and start buying even more oil. If they're getting ostracized, right? Like Donald Trump is going to notice this and is going to sanction the hell out of China, raise tariffs on China, blah, 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 whatever it may be. This is the point. It's to put the economic pressure, right? We can't help it if China just picks up the tab. But once again, there are levers to pull to force them into a box. That's what Donald Trump is attempting to do. May work, it may not, but from all accounts that I can see, it appears to be working currently. There's a lot of levers to pull, though. This also supports the theory that Trump's demands on India primarily serve U.S. trade interests. Yes, they can do both at the same time, by the way. Another argument is that Trump has now announced the amount of the punitive levy on India, an increase of 25%. They are set to take effect if India doesn't give in within the next 3 weeks. It would be as if India exports to the U.S. were subject to 50% tariffs in the future. Indeed, the additional 25% could significantly increase the pressure to give in to Trump. That is right. Delhi in a dilemma. India is in a dilemma. If India, out of consideration for Indian farmers, doesn't give in trade talks and the U.S. imposes a 50% tariff as punishment, India's growth will be weaker. Indian banking analysts expect. If India gives in and buys less Russian oil, growth is likely to suffer as well. It's a choice between the plague and cholera. No, once again, this is based upon a supposition that India is not going to buy oil from anywhere else for some reason. We can sell oil for damn near the same price as the Russian oil, for crying out loud. So they can just pick up that tab from us. We are currently increasing production as we speak. So we could just sell that oil to them with no real difference in the price. So that whole line of thinking, it just goes right out the window. Once again, these people don't seem to think, it seems like. One thing is already clear. Peace in Ukraine is definitely not the focus of U.S. President Trump's latest initiative. What do you mean by that, by the way? This man has tried time and time and time again. He's gotten Zelensky to come to the White House a couple of times at this point. He's had, I don't know how many meetings with Putin. Witkoff has gone to Russia. I don't know how many times at this point. They've brokered a ceasefire deal that was pretty much fell apart almost instantly, but he still brokered a ceasefire deal briefly. But it wasn't much to speak of because, like I said, it fell apart almost instantly. He's been trying and trying and trying and trying. He's been doing everything he can, and now he's turning things up to 11. Donald Trump wants peace in Ukraine. Well, I don't understand why these people seem to think otherwise. Oh, well, he's trying to get India to stop buying Russian oil so India stops feeding into the war machine. But yeah, that's not what he wants. Even though from everything we can look at and see, that's what Donald Trump is doing exactly. But, you know, like they say, if it looks like a duck and smells like a duck, it's probably a turkey, according to the left. Yeah, it's got to be a turkey. Even though it's quacking and waddling around like a duck does, it could be a chicken, by the way. These people are just insane, if you ask me. But I think I've rambled on for long enough. Y'all let me know what y'all think. That's all I got. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. That'd be great. Share this video. That'd be great. Sign up and become a member. That would be super double dibbly awesome if you could do that, by the way. Do all that. Do it. Do it. Do it. Y'all have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.